Welcome back to another episode of My Body, My Jokes. I'm comedian Morgan Lorraine Gallo, coming to you from Dude IDK Studios here in Denver. And if you would like to support the pod, which you already are by listening, I would love if you could leave me a review, literally anywhere, anything at all. Even if you were just like dope and just gave 4 stars, that would be sick. Supporting the podcast helps me like get the word out, helps people. Help me help you is what I'm going for. If you ever have anything to say, if you ever want to share your thoughts, dreams, feelings, fears, you can always email me at mybodymyjokes@gmail.com. I've gotten like 2 listener emails so far, which is really cool. Like I want to hear from people. I wish it was more though. So share me your head. Also, if you're in the Denver area, and you've probably heard this before, but I'm going to say it again, I'm hosting my Hourglass Social show right here at Dude IDK Studios in Denver on February 8th. And it's a very fun show. It is a part social hour, part female, non-binary, queer comedy show. So it's a really fun, like safe space for femmes to kind of come and just like have fun, get some free wine, get some free food. And then it ends in like 1 hour long comedy show. The first one was super fun. I'm really excited for the second one. It's like a very welcoming environment, which I personally love doing comedy for like female and non-binary queer audiences, just because they tend to be a little bit more like accepting. They just want to have a good time. So if you're around for that, February 8th, that's Hourglass Social right here at the studio. And today I'm joined by someone who is very near and dear to my heart and my vagina. He is...
Whoa.
He is the owner, manager, founder, PR, publicist, photographer, videographer, literally everything you could possibly imagine of Dude IDK Creative. It's Nick Holmby. Hi, Nick. And he's also my boyfriend. That's why he's being weird. Do you have a boyfriend that owns a podcast studio? No? Well...
Because he has a real job.
This is a real job. You do something very important, which is give me a chance to stroke my own ego.
Give everyone a platform.
Except yourself.
Exactly.
But here you are in your beanie.
I'm going to take this podcast
in your
over.
quarter zip, sitting on the podcast.
Yep. I'm a dad.
And I've wanted to... No, he's not. I've wanted to sit and talk to you on this podcast specifically for a while. I wanted to have you on my other podcast when I had Let's Fight About It, but it just didn't work out. But I feel like this is a really good type of podcast to talk to you about, because you've been with me through recovery. You've had your own experiences with your own body image, and there's a lot to discuss.
Yeah.
So, for those who don't know, Nick and I have been together for like 2 years. He's been the best boyfriend I could ever ask for. And we met doing comedy shit, and he's a very cool person. Would you like to say anything for yourself?
I'm a very cool person. Thank you.
Great. You're really lending a lot to this episode. I appreciate it. So you know that I ask everyone this on the podcast. You know what the question is. What is your current relationship with your body?
My current relationship with my body is very comfortable, but also you'll see me in those moments where I'm not comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I will look in the mirror sometimes and get a little upset with myself. But it all stems from a history of being the guy who always had a 6-pack and forced myself to work out twice a day. And so I'm learning to adjust, but I'm also learning what I'm comfortable with, how I'm comfortable with it. It's a weird area.
Yeah.
I truly, like we've discussed before, I think everyone has a little bit of something in them, if they admit it or not. A little bit of body dysmorphia.
What? Oh, body dysmorphia. Yeah.
I think so.
I think just because like the society we live in, it's kind of hard not to have body dysmorphia, no matter what your like background or gender is, because there's like really only 1 or 2 beauty standards that we go by.
Yep.
And for men, it's like so different.
Yeah.
Because you were even saying the other day about like, we were talking about how we don't really like going to like the gym or like certain places, because I always feel like I'm like the biggest girl in the room. And then you were like, oh yeah, I hate going to gyms where there's all these like big dudes walking around.
Yeah.
And it's like so different, because for me, I don't want to be around women that are smaller than me because it makes me feel bad, whereas you don't want to be the small one.
Yeah, because I used to be the bigger one. I used to be a bulky dude who worked out and ate protein every meal and meal prepped and ate so many calories and worked out and ran like crazy. So I was usually the biggest, well, not the biggest in the gym, but I was one of the biggest, most in shape people in the gym. And then now it's like just different.
Yeah.
I hate that lifestyle. I hate feeling like I have to be that. So now it's on this journey of trying to be cool with it. It's hard not to be cool with it because you think you're cool with it. But the gym I go to is a very bodybuilder heavy gym because I've had that membership forever, and I go there and I'll leave after 30 minutes.
Yeah. When you say cool with it, what do you mean? Like, are you like trying to be cool with not being that guy, or cool with having a different lifestyle?
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I don't want to like put people, I don't want to say it's douchey to be a certain body physique and you act a certain way in the gym, but it can come off that way. And I feel like there was a point where I was pretty toxic with my body, where I didn't take like selfies. I was never that guy, but I would purposely take my shirt off a little early before I walked into
the gym.
before I walked into the shower. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I had like veins popping and abs and it was, then I remember the pandemic changed everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you grew up as like a pretty athletic kid. You always had a fast metabolism. Like you grew up with, a brother. Like you never really experienced eating disorders or any type of parental pressure to look a certain way, right?
No, I remember one time my brother made fun of me on Facebook when I didn't even have a Facebook. I think a friend posted a picture of me and him, or of me in the gym that I didn't know about.
Okay.
And my brother left a comment that was like, he needs to take a break. He's looking like a douche. I forget what it was, but he kind of like roasted me and made fun of me. And my brother, coming from my brother, that's very strange. So I remember I looked at that and was like,
how did that make you feel?
I mean, it made me feel mad, but also, I don't know. I think we're two very different lifestyles. I think when I look back at it, I never wanted to look like a certain person in the gym. I didn't wear cutoffs. I always wore like baggy sweatshirts, baggy shirts. I wanted it to like kind of be a surprise if I was like bulkier. So if you look at any photos of me when I was in that stage of my life, I always had a bigger shirt on. I always wore XLs. I always had sweatpants on in the gym with like Converse or Vans. I just never wanted to come off like a bulky dude in the gym. And to me, that was toxic to think that way. You know what I mean? I was never comfortable with what I was doing. So.
What like motivated you to get to that place? Because I know that a lot of people start weightlifting for different. Yeah. Like what, as a guy, did you want to get bulky or get big because you felt like you needed to be, or was it like a health thing? What motivated you to do that?
I mean, growing up in sports, I remember our hometown in Wyoming was very, very into sports. We would play teams from out of state. We'd play huge teams. We were a 6A high school, and they would breed us early. Like my first time playing football was in 6th grade. And I got an interception, and one of the junior high coaches came up to me and said they can't wait to watch me in junior high. And I was like, who are you?
Yeah.
Why do you care about me? I'm on the Titans.
Yeah.
Like, if you saw a picture of
grade.
me, I'm like 100 pounds, if that.
Yeah.
And thinking back at that time, it's like, I'm not even fully through puberty yet. Why am I having to do all this?
Yeah.
So I remember my transition between 8th and 9th grade was very, my body definitely started changing, where I was keeping up with a lot of the linemen with the weights and stuff like that. I was squatting way more weight than I should have been. And we were going to the gym every morning from 5 to 7.
Jesus Christ.
And then, because they keep track of your personal records and your stuff like that, and then you start getting competitive. And I would lie if I said I wasn't competitive in that aspect, but I was definitely lying about it by pretending I didn't care. There's a lot of people like that we know. I pretended I didn't care, but I really fucking cared like deep down, where I was like, okay, I have to set for my weight. I have to set the record for bench, squat, deadlift. I got to do these things. And then I start working out with the high school kids because I'm getting invited to the high school to work out. So I start working out with the high school kids, and they're all older and bigger than me. Kids I'll never play with because they're older. And then you get this reputation of being this person in sports and being this person, and they want you in the gym more. And then you start doing the condition training with them, and you're all of a sudden you're going to the high school after junior high, and your mom has to give you a ride to the high school, or it's a competitive nature of sports that really built it into me. And then I worked construction on the ranches for a while, and coal mining for a while, and in that area you get a lot of ranching dudes, a lot of big dudes, so you have to keep up with them. And then it turns into this lifestyle of, if you aren't working out, you're not a real man type thing. So I'd work out from 5 to about 6 in the morning. Then I'd go to work from like 6:30 till 3, and then I'd be at the gym at 4, and I'd work from 4 to 6. And then I don't know how I did that every day working at the ranch.
Did you enjoy it?
I did, but I didn't. I did in the sense of, it was nice listening to music and getting away, like especially when you have roommates.
Yeah.
But in terms of what I was eating and like weighing my food, and like if I see shredded chicken ever again, I will throw it at the wall.
Yeah.
Buffalo sauce, like a homemade buffalo sauce without butter, then like it's just disgusting stuff that you eat. And I don't know, I think looking back at it, I had roommates who worked out all the time. I had one who was specifically a bodybuilder, who would be like wake you up and be like, oh, let's go to the gym, and you got to keep up with them, and they're keeping track of your PRs, so then you got to set your PRs, and then in your head you're thinking in the back of your mind like, okay, I haven't upped my weight in a week, I got to up my weight and this and that. And then moved to Chicago, and then all of a sudden the chiropractor I work for, they want to get my workout routine, so then we have to work out together, and I feel like I never got a break to myself. And the pandemic gave me that, in a very unhealthy manner, basically going from 100 to 0 right away. So
but what did that do for you, like mentally, going from this really rigid workout routine to all of a sudden the pandemic hits, you can't go to the gym? Like, how did you mentally deal with that?
Oh, it was the worst. The worst mental health of my life. I think the gym, not only what I was going through from getting laid off, to my relationship at the time, to all these things that were happening, I needed the gym to get away from that. Yeah. But all the gyms were closed. The apartment I moved to was because of the gym, which is kind of weird to think about. It wasn't the kitchen. It wasn't anything like that. It was because the gym was really cool. And that turned into just like, you can't find workout equipment anywhere. I think I went to Target and found a dumbbell.
There was like no yoga mats, no dumbbell, like nothing.
I found a dumbbell, like I think a 20-pound dumbbell. Yeah. And they like tripled the prices on those. So I think I got it for like maybe $55, $60. And I would just use that, and I got some bands, and I found a way to make it work. And I found a way to kind of change myself in terms of, I don't need to be setting personal records and hurting my body. I mean, I remember when I leg pressed 1,000 pounds at the gym one time.
Jesus Christ. For what?
It wasn't 1,000. It was like 800 pounds.
But still, that's what I think about sometimes when I like see, and I haven't been to a gym in a long time, but when I went, I remember seeing like people lifting so much weight that I'm like, what are you training for? Like, what are we actually doing?
You know what? I remember when I also did security when I lived in Washington and Arizona and all these other places. And when we do security, like we would manhandle people, unfortunately. And we needed to be stronger than a lot of these people. So that was a lot of motivation to do that. So that was probably a very toxic, but also like I wasn't eating and weighing my food. I was more of eating what I wanted. But I was also so poor that I could only eat chicken and rice. I couldn't afford anything else. Pizza rolls on my payday. Yeah. But getting paid $10 an hour living in Seattle is rough. Yeah. So it would go from working out these dudes who give you some testosterone, and all of a sudden I'm like, you're taking pre-workout and then you're taking testosterone.
Oh yeah, you've taken testosterone? So what did you do? You shot it in your butt? What'd you do?
No, this was like a testosterone drink mix.
Oh.
It was like kind of like a pre-workout that also has testosterone
Is that legal?
stuff in it. I don't know because they took it off the shelves.
Okay.
And you can't find it again.
Yeah,
so
I
don't
feel like
think
it's
so.
not. Yeah.
And this wasn't stuff you could get at GNC. This is stuff
Right.
that we would find, like a distributor who would get stuff for us. Basically, the guy I worked out with did steroids, tried to get me to do steroids. I didn't do steroids. So we'd find this stuff. I forget the name of it. But basically, there's no label to it.
Gross.
But it had like testosterone in it. And I remember it would just be the craziest kick of my life where I would lift hard. I would get home and I would just be good. And it was the craziest feeling of the closest thing to what I imagine people doing steroids is like.
Yeah.
This was like a weird amount of pre-workout with testosterone, but then there's also the post-workout with a little bit of testosterone.
Oh, God.
And I remember one time we were cleaning and deadlifting and I was doing way too much weight. And I remember even the guy I was working out with was like, "You're keeping up with me." And I'm like 180 pounds heavier than you. And he was all like muscle steroids. And I remember feeling my back in that moment, feeling my back just like start to give out. And then I started having this like kind of a back injury that I was hiding for a while. And I remember I got not in an accident, but I got in this really weird fight doing security. And I blamed that fight on my back, but really my back was just shot from working out for so many years.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like my form or anything like that. It was just the weight I was putting on. I remember when I was working out with Chris one time and he came over, he's like, "Why are you doing that much weight?" And it was like, remember counting the weight, it was like 110 or 810 pounds.
Jesus.
And then I remember kind of just racking it and it was just like maybe 1 or 2. And I racked it. And then I remember I just felt my knee in that moment also get really painful. So I really started slowing down on the heavy weight and I've learned to not be, why do I need to lift so heavy?
Yeah.
You know, and like what's beneficial to my body versus beneficial to what else I'm doing. So, yeah.
Wow. Look at you. It's crazy just to like hear a different side of it because I think a lot of the time we don't hear like men talk about the maybe expectations that they have on their body just because it's not like cool for men to talk about it, you know? Like I don't know if among your friends if you would ever you would probably feel comfortable because you're like a good person, but I don't know, like in certain circles of men, like is it appropriate to be like, yeah, I don't know why we have to like be so cut and big, like I like my body the way it is, you know?
I mean, yeah, the conversations I've had with a couple friends like that, they don't understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
It's almost like I don't know what it is. I don't know if they're like, you were always the opposite guy, but now you're saying this. You know what I mean? Because I was always the guy calling them in the morning saying, "Hey, let's go to the gym. Where were you at today?" This and that. Now I'm like, I haven't worked out in a couple months and I'm okay with that. So yeah, it's, I've had friends kind of be like, "That's weird," or "I would never be like that." That's where I think a lot of it, like that's what makes me dive deep into them and being like, why do you think that then?
Yeah.
Because when I look back at it, I do think I had dysmorphia in terms of like, I wanted a certain physique, but I was also embarrassed to have that physique. So I could never find a middle ground of being happy.
Like you wanted to be really cut and bulky, but you didn't want people to notice because you didn't want them to think you cared.
Yeah, but I also didn't want to be bulky to where like my veins were popping out. So I was like, I remember I got a physical when I was a coal miner and my physical said I was 9% body fat.
Jesus.
Yeah, I could like see the veins on my cuts. And I remember that moment changed so much of like, I don't want to look like this. And I know that's not healthy to be like this.
Yeah.
Maybe to some people it is. Me, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was very toxic. And I was never a guy that would use that. I remember at the bar, women would be like, "Show us your abs," like, "Show me your abs," or "Can you go?"
Ew, that's weird.
It's very, yeah.
This is in Wyoming?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know any woman that's like, "Show me your abs." That's really fucking weird.
Yeah. So then, like, that to me was embarrassing. So that's why I would like try to wear heavier clothes.
Yeah.
If I went out, I'd layer my clothes. I didn't want to like wear a tight shirt. I hated that. I thought people that dress like that were douchey.
Yeah.
And not to, I understand how I dress. I get it. But I saw a certain form of what I was turning into start to be what I absolutely hated. But I didn't know what I wanted to be or look like. And I think that was a sense of dysmorphia of, do I want to be bigger? Like, I don't want to be bigger. When people be like, Nick, your arms are looking huge. And I'm like, I don't want to be the comment of working out.
Yeah.
I don't want to be seen as a person who just works out. I want to be more than that. So,
would you say that now you're kind of at a place where you're trying to figure out your relationship with exercise?
Yeah, I definitely believe it is needed in a sense of like, I need to move my body more. Opening this studio and starting this business during the pandemic, everything has come so fast and so hard. And I'm always finding something to do with it, changing things up. And like I already told you, I'm doing it tomorrow.
You're very busy. Yeah.
But I think I could find an hour every other day or every couple days and like figure something out that's not toxic to it. Because I know if I go full into it, I'll be full into it.
Right.
And I don't think that would also be healthy on us.
Yeah. Well, I think if you, I don't know, I feel like we're at a place now where if you were like, I'm going to work out every day, I'd be like, sick, I'm going to sleep.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
You think so?
Because I go to dance and I go on my walks and like, I think I look at it more as like, you work out and I move. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a worker outer. Like I'm not going to like go to a gym and I'm not going to like go for a run. Like I'm not doing it to like work out. I'm doing it to like just feel my body move again.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's like two different types of activities.
Yeah.
But that is a good segue into our conversation about like, we were together for a year before I started recovery. And when we started dating, I think I hid my eating disorder from you, and it was easy too because we were long distance for 8 months. So it was kind of like, you know, you didn't know when I was like binge eating or getting high or like restricting or whatever. But what has the, I guess, journey been like for you this last, you know, little over a year, watching me kind of go into recovery and now like fully taking it on? What does that feel like as a partner?
It's exciting to see how far you've come, because I will say like your recovery led into us breaking up a couple times.
Yeah.
And being apart from each other, and I would get hints of like, I think I'm not a jealous, I'm not a smothering partner at all, but I would notice when things weren't okay, and I would try to get you to tell me what's going on, and I would definitely be like, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? What's happening? And I wouldn't get a text all night. Then the next day you'd be like, oh, I binged. And like, I can tell when that's happening now.
Yeah. It's very obvious, isn't it?
It's very obvious. And I know I can't change anything. So I kind of just would have to let it happen. Yeah. And then hear about it the next day. Right. Or the next couple of days. Right. But I always wondered what you were eating and how you were eating it. And I always wanted to get down to like, how's she doing it? Where is she doing it? When is she doing it?
Which is really interesting because, like I forget that you don't know what that's like. Yeah. Because there are so many people I talk to that, mostly women who are like in my circle, like we know what binge eating is because we've done it, or the opposite, like binge eating and purging or like restricting, like, but those words and that kind of information has never really been presented to you, right? Like when I say restricting, you're kind of like, well, I don't know what that, like, so you say no to some shit, you know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas for me, it's like, no, I'm like going out of my way to restrict my intake for a specific purpose, which is losing weight or control or whatever. Yeah. There were a lot of moments where when I was in the beginning of my recovery, something that has changed a lot for me, I think, is that I am very obsessive over like body size. And I have always felt like being a curvy girl, I have like needed to be with like really big dudes, or I've needed to make myself extremely small. And I think that has like really fucked over my, I guess, perspective on relationships. Like when I see, you know, women that are even just like a little taller than their men, I'm like, oh, that couldn't be me. I could never be that. And it's like, why? Like, why does that matter? And I think recovery has helped me get to that point where I was putting so much unnecessary pressure on you because of my bullshit and
Yeah,
not
oh,
because
yeah.
of any of your shit.
Yeah.
I was projecting my issues onto you,
Mm-hmm.
and that caused a lot of problems in the relationship because I couldn't just like sit myself down and realize like, oh, I need to work on this,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I mean, your recovery weighed real heavy on the relationship, but also I didn't know how to handle that.
Oh, yeah.
Where like I had to read books and look up articles and research how to handle it because I had no idea. I've always believed, if you asked me 2 years ago, if you asked me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I'd believe everyone has a little sense of body dysmorphia. Whether they admit it or not, whether they know it or not, I think people do something for a reason. And in the back of their mind, it's like, oh, I'm not going to have that second beer because I don't want to have a beer gut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think there's always a different level of it. Because, I mean, if you asked me 10 years ago what like anything about eating disorders, I would have thought it was like bulimia.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Because that's what everyone thinks.
I didn't know all the different types of eating disorders there are. And that, to me, now that I know way more about it, I don't want to seem educated about it, but
No, but you are more than, I mean, you're very like adjacent to it because of me.
I agree more that everyone for sure has a level of body dysmorphia in their system somehow.
You know what I think you're referring to is just diet culture in general.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear the term diet culture before I kind of started talking to you about it?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I've always had a girlfriend who had something, like would say something or would have something. I think that, or like they had a salad tonight because they ate a burger yesterday.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
Like,
It's like a lot of that bargaining that we're taught about, oh, I need to go for a run. I had a brownie last night.
if they have big boobs, they're already automatically projected as being a bigger girl, even if they're not. So it's like, or if they have a big butt, same thing. Like, I think that there is a sense of that with everyone that I've always noticed. I just never really looked into it. I thought it's something that you just have to get over.
Yeah.
Or they will get over themselves. They have to deal with it themselves.
Right.
So
What do you think is like one of the biggest things that you've learned going through this process with me, whether it's like about food or body image or like these different terms? Like what have you been taking away the most from this?
Man, there's a lot. Taking away of just how bad it is for a lot of people. Sitting and recording your podcasts, hearing everyone's different experiences with it.
Yeah.
I think that the most I've learned is just like, man, I don't know. There's a million things that run through my mind of like, whether it's a situation I went in or a situation I heard from someone else or, gosh.
Maybe what's like the most surprising thing that you've learned?
The most surprising thing I've learned is how bad it can be, I guess. Like, I've seen you say things about yourself or to yourself that are, I've read your journals that you've willingly gave me.
Yeah.
And I've cried because it was so bad to see like a little girl talk the way she did about herself.
Yeah.
And I remember that one day I read that journal in my apartment and I like really cried uncontrollably. It was really annoying how much I cried because it was just like,
It was annoying.
Dude, it was the way you talked about yourself or like what you went through growing up and what you were. I started to put myself in your shoes about how early it starts and how long it can go for.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's not something you can just get over and kind of deal with. I think some people can somehow, but like the therapy you have to go through, it's just it's way more difficult and complex than I ever imagined. You know what I mean? I guarantee one of my exes would tell me they had a eating disorder or body dysmorphia thing, and that's how I would see it. I would just see it on the table as that.
Yeah. And not as like a complex like trauma response.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing deeper. And then with you, it turned into like, it was such a problem. It was such a thing that I needed to help somehow versus sit on the sidelines and let you do it.
Yeah.
Because I remember, I think it was one of our first dates, and I was like, I can't fix you.
Yeah. Oh, wow. One of the first times I came to Denver, you took me to this very fancy restaurant, and we had been talking probably for like a month and a half at that point. Like we had been kind of like, we'd like gotten to know each other. And I remember I asked you, what are you looking for in a long-term relationship? And you gave me like a really great answer. You were like, I just want to be with someone that has their own passions, like can take care of themselves. And you were like, I don't want to have to fix someone. And I remember going, oh, fuck, in my head when you said that, because I knew that I would never put that on you, but I remember feeling like, oh, he has no idea. Like I can't let him know that I have this problem. Yeah.
I've had a couple relationships, probably the last couple relationships where had some trauma growing up, like some crazy family history, just crazy. I don't want to say crazy, sorry, but they had real tough family history or real tough, biological stuff, that it's just led me into going to therapy myself. And I thought I would have to do therapy to take care of these things.
Yeah. Yeah. It felt like your responsibility.
Yeah. And then everything felt like my responsibility. I always like took the blame for stuff. I was always scared to speak up because I didn't want to add more trauma to their trauma type stuff.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the good person in their bad stuff.
Yeah.
And it turns into a punching bag of sorts. So I remember I was like, you know what? I know what I want. I'm done trying to like help and fix everyone, because I am a person who puts people before me, and that is, I think, a little bit of a weakness.
Yeah.
And I viewed it as like, you know what? I'm going to be me. And this is, if you want to be in this relationship with me, then I'm going to be a little more selfish. But it was kind of a test to see what you had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was yeah, dude. It was I was also having a real bad day that day, but I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Yeah.
I had no idea you had any trauma of any sort. I had no idea you had an eating disorder.
Yeah.
I had no idea of anything. And then turns out like you were the craziest one. I'm just kidding. But it turns out like you are the most invested one I've been in, because I want to be invested. I've bought the books. I've researched the things. I'm always going to learn.
Yeah.
Just because I got a book doesn't mean anything. I've had to reread the same chapters and go back and reread, because it's just stuff. It's like the same. You read the same book. I gave you my newer copy, and you have to keep reminding yourself, keep learning.
How did you feel the first time I told you I had an eating disorder? Do you remember? I remember.
I do. You remember how I felt?
No, I remember how I told you.
Yeah.
It was very weird. It was a very random moment I chose.
Yeah, because we were pretty random with each other when we were kind of like telling each other stuff about ourselves.
Well, I think too, being long distance
FaceTime
made it it made it like kind of tough to know like when is an appropriate moment to bring this up. But I remember I told you like we were in your apartment, the first apartment you had, and we were like laying on your bed, and I think I was like crying. But how did you feel when I first told you I had an eating disorder?
I remember thinking that I was so into you. I remember just thinking like, I want to do this with you. Whatever steps of whatever's happening, I want to do it with you. Because seeing you cry sucks. I don't want to see you cry. So I really just wanted to kind of take it on with you. I was prepared to. I was willing to do everything I said that one day at Jing that I said I wouldn't do. I wanted to do. I don't think it's a bad thing to have an eating disorder or anything like that. I think it's something that I was like, you know what, if I want to be in this relationship, I'm going to have to learn.
Yeah.
I can't be on the sideline letting you do it yourself. I can't make assumptions. I can't do any stuff like that. So I just knew that if we were going to be together, I can't let you do it alone, you know?
Mm-hmm. What's been like the most difficult part of watching me go through recovery?
How bad it hurts you.
How bad, you mean how bad the eating disorder hurts me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, recovery's tough.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I could say that as well as I can, but you know more than anyone. Like, I do see how tough it is. Trying to adjust to like what you would eat. I didn't know if it was okay to eat salads all the time, if I was really craving a burger or something. And it was like, yeah, dude, steak and veggies sound, salad and veggies sound so good, but really I just wanted to, because we ate it for the 8th time in a row, you know?
We did eat a lot of salads, yeah.
Too
but
many
that was
salads.
before I started recovery.
That was?
When I was at my Sloan's Lake apartment and we were like making salads all the time.
You were also doing it at your last apartment quite a bit. There was like there was a run.
Oh, we were
salads.
doing a lot of salads.
There was a run of salads where I was like, okay, she's probably feeling a little bit more ED right now than she was yesterday.
That's interesting.
There's stuff I absolutely noticed.
Yeah.
If you ate a certain way or if you reacted a certain way, if I was like, hey, let's go out and get pizza tonight, or let's make this or that. I think adjusting to our eating together, because when you have a partnership, you want to eat the same thing, you want to eat at the same place, you want to make the same dinner. You don't want to have to be like, I'm gonna get my crap out of the fridge, you get your crap out of the fridge.
I think that's pretty normal though.
But
I mean, like we eat a lot of stuff like similarly, but
for me it's tough because I don't know how you're feeling that day.
Yeah.
Or if like you binged the night before or a few days before and you're like, I need you to come over and be with me. I don't know if it's like, fuck, I could really eat a brownie right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Adjusting, figuring it out. The hardest part has been the adjusting and figuring it out. Because I could read stuff all day about stories of other people, but everyone has their own story. Like I could listen to your podcast and take away what they're saying, but their experience is different than yours. Yours is different than theirs. Everyone has their own story. No one's is the same. That's the biggest thing I learned. No one has the same situation. No one's recovery is the same. No one's eating disorder is the same. And I've learned a lot that I had some in a way where it's like, oh yeah, I ate this yesterday. I can't eat that for like another week.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I learned was like having to be comfortable with myself and what I'm eating. But the toughest part to me is like maybe just the learning. Honestly, there's just a lot to learn.
Yeah.
It's a lot to learn, especially when you're running a business and you're managing people and you're doing all these different things. Now it's like, I also have to really learn this because this is very crucial in our relationship.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Is there anything that you feel like you can apply to your life though? Like I asked you what was something that like surprised you earlier and you were kind of talking about like how bad it is for some people. Have you seen any changes I've made and been like, oh, I should probably do that too?
Yeah. Yeah, I think sometimes I would try to make a point to you where it's like, we can eat this, and it would turn into like, we're eating a lot of that type stuff where it's like, okay, we ate out too much. Let's be comfortable with what we have in the fridge. I think expanding my palate with what you have, because you don't eat meat. So I think learning to make really good stuff, doing really good things with more veggies. I do love veggies. I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Like, have you noticed, me like taking more time to, I don't know, focus on like food or allowing myself to eat a certain way, or my relationship with movement that has kind of made you second guess like what you're doing?
Yeah, actually that's great that you say movement. I think that I see you dance and I see you doing stuff all the time, and I will get jealous because I'm like, I want that time.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I don't get any time in the day.
Yeah.
So it definitely motivates me to, I don't want to say get back in the gym, but like to move again.
Yeah.
And find a hobby that I love again. Like I went through that painting phase again that I want to get back into. I think just getting back in the gym to me is important to me because I like that moment. It is a moment of therapy.
Yeah.
I like when I get new metal music, I will create a playlist and like I can't wait to lift heavy to this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that you inspire me to get out and move more. I don't want to say I'm just lazy as hell, nothing like that, but like I'm climbing ladders, I'm doing stuff in the studio all day. Then I like go home and I do stuff there, but like I need my time to like go somewhere, listen to some music.
I think that makes sense.
Take a routine out of it. I think you have a routine now. I think you've created a routine where you go to dance. Mm-hmm. You do certain things at certain times. Like I want that, and I'm gonna figure that out too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think I take a lot of your recovery and I compare it to things I didn't know about myself, and I'm learning about myself and being like, okay, I could definitely be doing something like that.
Yeah.
You know?
What do you think has been, I mean, I know it's been like a year, so it's probably hard to think back a year ago, but like what do you feel like has been the biggest change that you've seen in my behavior since starting recovery?
Your attitude. Because there was that time when you just seemed to hate me and everything to do with me at all.
Yeah.
Like I was trying to help you, but then you'd like completely shut me out or not talk to me for like a whole day. So then I didn't know if I was doing things right. I had to learn to adjust to like be your cheerleader, but also be stern at times and be like, no, you need to listen to me. And it's okay if you do this, if you don't do that.
I think it's really difficult for people who have eating disorders to feel like we can be supported in a way that feels comfortable. Like it's hard to trust because part of eating disorders is literally just keeping it a secret. Like the biggest part of it is being able to get away with it and know that you can participate in it without other people knowing. And it's almost like part of the thrill of it is knowing like, ooh, I didn't eat my lunch today and no one noticed, or oh, I binged today and no one noticed, or whatever it is, or I exercised way too much today and no one noticed. And like like that feeling like you can get away with it. So when you start recovery, sometimes it feels really difficult to do the opposite, which is actually let people in and be like, hey, I'm struggling, or hey, this is happening.
Yeah.
I still kind of feel that way. I mean, I'm much more open with you now than I was obviously a year ago about, hey, I feel like I'm going to binge. I need you to be here. Or, hey, I feel this way. I think it's because it feels embarrassing. You know, I think a lot of the time it's because, especially like as an adult, sometimes I'm like, damn, I can't believe I'm, fucking 29 years old, still dealing with the same shit I was dealing with in high school. Like, why have I not recovered yet? So telling you, oh, I feel this way today, or I don't feel good, or I think I'm going to engage in this behavior, sometimes feels like I'm admitting defeat when I know it's not that. It's just me reaching out for help.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, I'd be proud every time you told me that you binged or... Because I feel like every time you tell me, it was a step towards your recovery. Because a lot, like you said, people keep it a secret. They don't want people to know.
Well, and binge eating is really tricky because binge eating disorder is the most common eating disorder of all of them.
See, that's one of those things I never knew.
Yeah, it is the most common eating disorder. And the majority of people who have eating disorders live in normal to larger bodies. So the way that the media portrays eating disorders, whether it's through magazines or movies or sometimes even TikTok, is like, we think that an eating disorder affects a very specific type of person. And it's usually a small white girl who is really thin and just doesn't know how beautiful she is and just starves herself. And that's it, right? Like, and then you feel bad. You're like, oh, she doesn't know that she's so pretty. No.
Exactly.
And so sometimes for me, for a long time, I always felt like well, I can't admit that I have an eating disorder because no one's going to look at me and think that I'm anorexic or bulimic, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want to admit that I have binge eating disorder because that feels even more shameful than just having an eating disorder. But now I feel like it's not something to be ashamed of. And it's been really helpful to have this podcast and talk about it because like, it's really normal. Like me relying on food to make me feel better sometimes is a behavior that I'm working on, and it's not something to feel shameful about because kind of society has like taught us that. You know, like I did that whole episode with Maddie about Weight Watchers and how it teaches you like if you're good all week, you can indulge at the end of the week. So
to me, that's the most common because that's what like my friends and I would do is like, oh, we had Buffalo Wild Wings last week. We can't do that this week.
Yeah. It's
Or
like a bargaining system.
That bargaining system I think is very common with everyone.
Yep.
I think if people actually would sit down and listen to this, if my friends would actually listen to this podcast, they would sit there and be like, fuck yeah, I do that same shit, you know?
Well, and it's funny. Oh, someone's at our front door. We have a ring doorbell thing. I think the biggest thing, I know she runs to the
door.
I think the biggest thing too from like exploring diet culture and finding like the common patterns among diets and the way that we think of food that's been really kind of reassuring is just knowing that like your body is going to just do its thing regardless. And that was a huge lesson in like the intuitive eating book is like the way that you eat day to day is kind of less important than the way you eat like every week, every month, every year, right? Because your body is like on a system. And if you eat like less calories today and then more calories tomorrow and then less calories the next day, your body's going to even it out because its whole purpose is to keep you alive and to keep you healthy and to keep you surviving. Mm-hmm. And so learning that I can eat a normal meal plan, and whether that includes dessert, snacks, whatever kind of breakfast or lunch or dinner that maybe I previously thought was like too many calories, and knowing that my body can not only like sustain itself but also maintain that weight is really cool.
Yeah.
Because I always thought for a really long time that if I just cut out one thing out of my diet, I'll stay thin. Whether it's, you know, a lot of people cut out like carbs, for example. Like people love to eat a breadless burger or fucking eat chicken and veggies and no rice. Like they always think that if they cut that one thing out, that's going to be the solution. When in reality, it's like, no, if you feed your body an adequate amount of nutrients from all kinds of foods, it's going to like help you out.
Yeah.
And I think that's been like a really big lesson for me is just knowing that I can have real butter. You know, I can eat dessert every night. Yeah. I can use real coffee creamer instead of the sugar-free crap. Like, my body's not going to fucking go into like shock all of a sudden.
That's kind of like what the culture of the workout environment, of like guys being like, there seems to always be this one professional who has this philosophy of some type of diet that's like, oh, it doesn't matter what you eat as long as you fill in those calories that day. So you could eat pizza all day as long as you fill those calories. And then people are like, yeah, dude, then if I work out, that's totally cool and this and that. And everyone has these different instincts and different ways that they can project something that over the years I've heard was just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. To me, it's all the same. And I think that I will sit there sometimes and be like, fuck, dude, we only live one time. My grandma lived to be old as hell, and she smoked and drank whiskey every day.
Yeah.
And I remember she swore that she would live forever because she did that, and she lived longer than any of our other families. So it's like, if there's times where I'm like, fuck, I'm going to eat this ice cream, cool. I'm not going to talk myself out of it, because when you talk yourself out of it, then you start to weigh the pros and cons, and that's, to me, is very dangerous.
Well, and I always think about like my deathbed, which is probably a morbid thing to do, but I always think about it when I'm starting to overthink food decisions or like movement decisions of like, oh, should I go to dance today? Should I always think about like, am I going to be lying on my deathbed being like, fuck, I ate too many cookies. You know what I mean? Like, no, I'm going to be thinking about all of the great memories I had and all the things I got to do because I didn't stop myself from eating the food or not go. Like, I've spent so much of my life either not going to social gatherings because I didn't want to eat the food there, or I was afraid I was going to binge the food there, or turning down food all the time because I thought that it was going to make me fat. Like, I would go to birthday parties and not eat the fucking birthday cake. What is wrong with me? Like, what? It's such a dumb way to live.
That sucks.
It's so stupid. And that's why sometimes, like, now that we live together, even that relationship with food is changing because now we share a fridge. We share a pantry. You know what I mean? Like, we share meal times. Yeah. And even the other day I had to like voice to you, I was like, I know that you're not judging me, but I've been eating dessert every night and I feel like you're judging me, but I know you're not. I had to say that.
Yeah, you said it just like that.
Yeah, because I literally was like, I know that he doesn't give a fuck, but in my head, he's looking at me thinking, wow, what a fat pig. She's been eating dessert every night.
But
and
in
I
your
know
defense,
that you don't care.
There are a lot of men that do that.
Yeah,
and there are a lot of women that do that. So I don't blame you for thinking that, but you know me, or I'm a little too easygoing in many ways, but with that, I don't give a shit, dude. I'm the same way.
Well, and I think there's some comfort in the data that I have from recovery, knowing that like I've been eating dessert. I've done a lot of challenges with my nutritionist. You remember when I was doing a lot of challenges where I'd have to like go to a bakery and like eat there for breakfast and just like sit and like not panic about it, or I had to keep certain foods in my cabinet without binging on them. And it's like my weight has been maintained for the past like 8 months. Yeah. And that's crazy. Yeah. Like my weight has never stayed the same for longer than like 3 months.
It's it's that back to that body dysmorphia of if I wouldn't work out for 24 hours, I would look in the mirror and be like, my body just changed. Right. But nothing's changed.
Yeah, nothing's fucking changing.
Nothing's changing. But when we look in the mirror, it just looks drastically different. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
And I think it's especially hard for women because when we go through our like menstrual cycles, like I always have 1 week a month where I'm like, I am the biggest monster in this house. And I convince myself that I've like gained a bunch of weight, and then I get my period and I'm like, oh, it was just that.
I will say the coolest thing that I've noticed you do, like especially with going through recovery,
God,
is that you're more comfortable eating certain things without getting my approval, or like if you want to eat something, you would hope that I was also eating it so you'd feel more comfortable eating it. Yeah. So it's like last night you had that plate with the cookie and that other little cookie my aunt made and sent us, and that was cool seeing you eat that without asking me if I also would eat one or wanted to have one. Yeah. Because if I was like, no, I'm okay, I don't feel that, then I would see you be like, okay, I'm not gonna have it either. Yeah. And I get that. I do get that. It's like when you're with your friends and you're like, it's like, do you want to get pizza? They go, no, man, I had this yesterday. It's like, oh yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have. Yeah. Yeah. So seeing you not care and be more confident in your choices of what you're eating is awesome. Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
It feels awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really like freeing to know that, especially having a partner that's willing to look into the process of it all and have an open mind and not be like really stuck in diet culture. Because I think there are a lot of people who, when you say recovery to them, they're like, oh, what? So now you're just going to eat whatever you want all the time and you're not going to work out and you're just not going to care about your health. Like they don't understand that like healthy to me means eating the dessert and being okay with it, not moving that day and being okay with it. Whereas healthy to you might be something completely different. Exactly. And I have been with like guys before who are very keen on like, we need to eat this, we need to do this, I can't, we should be going to the gym, we should be doing this and that. And
I used to be that guy for sure.
Yeah, and it makes me want to barf. Like get away from me.
Yeah. People think it's a very selfish world of, I feel this way, so they have to feel that way. Or we ate chocolate cake last night for dinner, I gotta wake their ass up in the morning for the gym because I'm doing it. Yeah. And it's just, I don't know, it's weird. I've gotten into deep ever since, even before your recovery, just learning about eating disorders and body dysmorphia and all these different things. Is I've had conversations with my real close friends where it's like, I've sat there and I'll just straight up call them out and be like, you have an eating disorder. And they'll be like, what? No, I don't. I'm like, yes, you do.
Yeah.
Because you're doing this for a look. You're not doing this for a benefit of anything other than to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And if you have to do this, if you have to do steroids at a certain age so you look this way, it's because you want to look better for everyone else.
Do you feel more comfortable like calling out diet culture now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I didn't know what it was. I thought it was bulimia and binge eating. And I remember when I wanted to watch The Whale with you.
Oh, I still haven't watched that movie.
And you're like, I don't want to watch that. And I was like, I don't get it. But after like reflecting on the movie, it's like, I get that.
Yeah.
It can be triggering.
Yeah. I still am like afraid to watch it.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like even though I'm in recovery and I know I'm doing well, I feel like I would watch it and see myself in it. You know what I mean?
Comparison. Yeah. You're really comparing. I mean, that's the one thing that I've seen you do a lot is comparing. Like, I will go to the grocery store and I'll see you look at someone a certain way.
But will you?
Yes.
How do you, what?
Because I'll see you like kind of.
Like a girl?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was like, either she's trying to funger or.
No, it's always, look at how skinny her arms are. It's always that. Or it's look at how clear her skin is. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's been fun I don't want to say it's been fun, but it's been interesting breaking down how you feel, when you feel, why you feel. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it has been your arms.
Yeah. A
lot of it has been what you're wearing, or you'll look in the mirror and be like, oh, do I look different than I did yesterday? It's like, no, you don't. Mm-hmm. You know, I like that we don't have a scale. I think scales are stupid.
If you had a scale, I would smash it.
Hell, I remember I weighed myself last Christmas and I was like, what the fuck?
Really?
Yeah.
Did you have a scale at your
apartment? It's more than I ever weighed when I wasn't working out.
Oh.
When I was like, had muscle on me, I weighed about that.
Yeah.
And I was like, the body mass of my height and stuff like that just wasn't good. And that's when I like felt a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
So, sorry to bore you, but I remember sitting there being like, fuck, man.
Which is so funny
I
because
want to say something to Morgan. I think I said something where I was like, yeah, I fucking weighed myself and that sucks. But now I'm a little more particular of how I say it and when I say it.
Oh,
what I need to say.
Yeah.
A lot of learning. I will be learning the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. Well after, if you're ever done with recovery, I don't think you're ever done with recovery. Mm-hmm. I think everyone going through this stuff will always go through it.
Yeah.
I think that when you're at lunch and you're thinking about what you should eat in front of a certain person or in front of certain people, that's part of recovery. Mm-hmm. And I think that someone with an eating disorder will always think that. Or if they're thinking like, I don't care. I think that's part of recovery too. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So
it's just the act of picking your relationships with either food, movement, body image, and like sticking to it and being able to like do it without the consent of other people.
Yes.
I definitely looked for the consent of other people and the validation from other people, like eating in public.
Yeah.
Or trying on clothes in public or whatever. Like I was always looking to someone else to validate that what I was doing was correct. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny because even when you and I first started dating, like I was afraid to eat in front of you because I wanted you to think I was this like...
Yeah, you'd barely eat anything and it would bother me.
Yeah.
I just bought this awesome paella for us and you're not going to have any? Like, more for me.
Like I wanted you to think that I was I wanted you to think I was in control. I wanted you to think that I don't know what it was because it's like, I guess I've just always been a curvy girl. And so I don't want people to think that I like don't take care of myself because I'm curvy.
Yeah.
But now I recognize that weight and the way you look has nothing to do with your health. And it is like not at all indicative of
the lifestyle.
Yeah. Like it doesn't.
You're more active than so many people.
Maybe.
You are. You're more active than I am.
Well, you're just busy. I mean, you have like a full time. Our job lives our careers are very different.
Yeah, but I mean, there are so many people out there that think that because you're curvier it means you're lazier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people. To me, curvy's sexy because I think that curvy people are real. I think curvy is normal.
Yeah.
Whether you call it curvy, thick, whatever you think it is, I think that's very normal. To me, it's attractive because it's just normal. It's not less pressure, I guess. I don't know how to say that correctly, but
well, it's typically curvy or thick or whatever, like that body type is a lot more common in the world rather than the Eurocentric beauty standards that we tend to uphold, which is like very thin, very white. And it's just not realistic for a lot of cultures. Like if you go literally anywhere else in the world, you will see so many people that don't look like the models and the people that we put on a pedestal. So it is kind of funny because it's like, I was actually talking with Katie last night about this, who I'm really excited to have on the podcast eventually. But she was talking about how like she sees TikToks of girls being like, look, you don't have to be ashamed if you want to be thin. Like everyone's acting like you can't be thin now. Like I lost 100 pounds and I feel great. And it's like no one is telling you that you're not allowed to be thin. We're literally just trying to say that it's okay to be thick, but you're victimizing yourself because you have nothing else to do. It's so exhausting. And I don't know. I think like the pressure of social media has made it a lot worse. But I think this is a good conversation. What advice would you have for someone who is in a relationship with someone who either has an eating disorder or is like embarking on recovery?
To be patient and learn, do research, and ask questions. Absolutely ask questions, because if you don't ask questions, then you're going to assume and you're going to overcompensate in so many ways of like, are you okay? What's wrong? Why are you feeling this? What's going on? Why that?
Yeah,
it's like,
we don't want that.
Like you're very independent. You need that space sometimes, whether you're sanding something down or whether you're upstairs scrubbing a floor or whether you're going to dance or whether you're just sitting there reading. Like we all need our time to ourselves to look back. We all need to get to a point where we need to be comfortable letting people do their recovery to a point where they can be comfortable to ask us. I've learned that with you is I can't hound you. I can't force you to tell me what's going on. I can't force you to ask me questions. I can't force you to tell me things. I can't force my own questions on you. It's just, I have to be patient and I have to like kind of let you figure it out and then come to me. That's the biggest thing I've learned about you is like, you never did that. You always kept it to yourself. But I think we're at a point now where now that we are back together and we are in this situation where you're more comfortable letting me know, because you know I've done the research, you know I'm doing research, you know I look. I think you're more comfortable with telling me how you're feeling, what you're feeling, and why you're feeling.
Yeah.
So just being patient.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's valid.
So I do have a question for you.
Uh-oh. I never get interviewed on this podcast.
You had a great episode where I was sitting over there and you're by yourself and you're talking about the history of why.
Oh, my unedited story.
And
yeah.
I keep saying how, why, when, but it is a big factor of the history of things, like why. Do you think if you weren't pressured from your own kin to be a certain way, how do you think?
I like the choice of word. Kin?
Yeah. How do you think you'd be if you didn't have that? Do you think you'd still have an ED because of dance? Do you think you would?
I think that I would more than likely still struggle with body image. I don't know if I would have as tumultuous of a relationship with food, because I think I learned at a very young age that food is the enemy and that it is only a thing to be earned. Whereas
from said kin,
because there were a lot of comments made to me from a very young age about, you know, I would dip fries into ranch and they'd be like, you're just adding the fat, don't do that. Or I would eat like an apple just handheld and they'd be like, wow, I've never seen you eat an apple like that. Or just like comments that made me feel like my food choices were not valid, especially as a growing girl.
Yeah.
And so I feel like my body image shit probably would have still been there just because like I did grow up in a super thin white city and I did dance, and everyone that danced with me on my teams were like very tiny.
Yeah.
And I was the chubbier, curvier girl. But I don't know if like my weirdness with food and like hiding it and binging on it would have really happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting to ask the question because women are very tough on each other. Like, even if it's not you at the grocery store, I see how women look at each other and they look each other up and down. They compare. I think women compare themselves more than anyone will.
Well, we're like taught to.
Yeah, exactly. So I always wondered if you just learned at such an early age through your own kin, or if that would like change because of the dance.
Well, you know what's funny is like, we're talking about my mom. My mom would never. She doesn't know what a podcast is. She never like. I never really heard her make comments about like body stuff as much as food stuff. Like she only really commented on my body in ways of like, oh, you need to suck in, or like she never would look at me being like, you need to lose this, you need to lose weight, you need to do, you know what I mean? Like her thing.
She knows your family's body style.
Right. Like I don't, she never really gave me any indication that certain body parts were wrong. She only more gave me indication that food would cause me to look a certain way and to avoid food for that reason. The body stuff, I think, came more from the fact that I was so different than everyone I grew up with. And especially being in the dance industry, which is very looks based, and like you're constantly getting measured for uniforms, you're constantly getting fitted for costumes for recitals. Like people are constantly looking and measuring and weighing your body. So it made me feel like, oh shit, maybe what my mom's saying about food is right because my body looks this way. And I do think a lot of women experience that with their moms. Because it's just, I mean, it's just the cycle of trauma. Like my mom's mom wasn't necessarily hard on her for her weight, but she certainly wasn't a very nurturing person. She wasn't very like emotionally supportive.
Yeah.
And I think that my mom probably started to rely on food to keep her company. And then eventually, you know, she was a triathlete, she was a firefighter. Like she went through all of these really active lifestyles and kept this very athletic body for so long that when she retired and, you know, had kids, her body totally changed. And then all of a sudden she was like completely, she had a belly, you know what I mean? Like she had like some weight on her and was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I remember my mom would go for like hour-long runs when we lived in the mountains, and she'd get a babysitter to come over for like an hour and a half so she could like go on a run. And I never like thought anything of it. And she would like buy snowshoes to go snowshoe. Like she made a point every single day to go do some type of exercise. And looking back on that, I'm kind of like, oh, that might have been a little like toxic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, my stepdad would do the same to me growing up, but I don't view it as that as such.
Well, probably because he wasn't commenting on your body and shit.
They would.
Yeah.
There's reasons why when I'm 12 years old, I'm going to the junior high at 5 a.m. to work out. And he'd be working out with me. He was kind of the weird dad that was in the gym. He was the only dad.
He's like coaching all the boys on their deadlifts and shit.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Spotting people and like,
oh my God.
It was embarrassing, but I also see it's helped me learn why he's like that. He didn't really have the dad that was around. He's the one who taught me how to change brakes, how to change oil, how to throw a football.
And he still even makes comments about food.
Yeah.
And he did last time we were visiting him, and I kind of like, I had a moment.
Wyoming is a very different world. It's very shut off. It's like its own island sometimes.
It's an isolated place.
It is an isolated place. I think they don't have as much interaction with people. Everyone there to me is the same.
Yeah.
You're kind of this cutout of each other.
Yeah, there's not a lot of different culture coming through there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can say that because I lived there for so many years, and I go back to visit frequently, and it's the same. To where you don't come to, like, you come to Denver, it's a very different world. You see your guests on the podcast. You know what I mean? It's just,
yeah.
you learn culturally the specifics of how people are a certain way, how they're not. And you start to realize things about other people that they're never going to admit they want to know or will. And I try to get deep with him, and he just doesn't want to. And I've heard stories about why, you know, and I respect that. But I do see that trickle down effect.
Yeah.
Of like, their dad did this, so they don't want to do this, which causes this. Or their dad did this, so they do it. It's just their norm.
There's a lot of I don't know if like research is the right word, but there's a lot of discourse around the fact or the idea that the kids who are the cycle breakers of trauma, like the kids who finally stop the cycle of abuse or whatever in their family, tend to be the black sheep of the family and tend to get ostracized or isolated from their family because their family is so unwilling to take a step back and realize that they're actually the one escaping the problem and not that they are the problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's rang true for me with like going through recovery and figuring out my relationships with my mom as well as other members of my family and being like, no, I'm allowed to be like, you're a dick. I don't want to, you know, I don't want you to be in my life. Like, I'm allowed to be like, hey, don't make comments about my body. I mean, even the other day, which I found so interesting, we FaceTimed my parents for Christmas, and my dad made a comment just offhandedly about how my brother and his fiance just like ate a lot at dinner. And he's like, man, they can really pack it down or whatever he said. Yeah. And I think I looked at you and I just kind of was like, I gave you a look, and he just kept talking, and it wasn't anything until like an hour later he texted me and was like, hey, I noticed that when I said this, I saw you kind of grimace, and I just wanted to let you know, like, I didn't mean it in a way of shaming them, or I really just meant like I was surprised it looked like they just hadn't eaten for days, and I was just surprised that they ate that much. And I sent him this very long, thoughtful reply of like, yeah, I think it's important to recognize, like, you know, we don't need to talk about the way people eat. Like, we don't need to comment on that. It's just kind of a moot point. Like, it's not bringing anything to the conversation. I'm not like triggered. You don't have to worry about me, whatever. And then he just sent like a heart back.
Yeah.
And it's like, I have to, like, I'm like slowly breaching that topic of conversation with my parents, but it is difficult when, you know, they're in their 60s, they're set in their ways, they're not gonna like start thinking completely different.
Do you think he needed to explain himself?
No, I mean, if he didn't send me that text, I wouldn't have like thought much about it, because I know that he doesn't have the same views as my mom does when it comes to food. Like, when I was growing up, my dad was the parent that I could eat anything in front of him and he wouldn't comment on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he was never the parent that was going to scold me for my food decisions. So I think more that he made a comment, I was just kind of like, okay, like, you don't really need to say that to me.
Yeah.
But the fact that he did text me meant a lot, because it made me feel like, oh, he is paying attention. They understand that what I'm going through is like serious.
It is interesting to see like the generations of, is our generation too sensitive to where like we've heard our parents say stuff where we're kind of like,
yeah, do you really need to use that word?
But then there are times where like we don't think anything of it because we're part of that generation. Like we grew up with that. It's like we know their humor. We understand why they say stuff. And like Tony said something the other day that I don't want to repeat, but it was kind of like,
yeah, it was like a little jarring.
It wasn't even bad. It wasn't even jarring.
No, it was just kind of like, oh.
Yeah, it was kind of like,
at least I was like, oh.
Yeah, you're from Missouri, and like, you're a very small town.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't think people have to explain themselves when we're intelligent enough to see where they're coming from, why they are. If there is certain verbiage or certain words or certain things, then it's like, yeah, don't ever fucking do that. Yeah. But
like if I was called out at like a family gathering for what I was eating or my weight, I would like burn that person to the ground.
Yeah.
I'd be like, why the fuck would you think that that's appropriate? Whereas these kind of offhanded comments about like, even when my mom is like, you know, oh, I've gained weight. I need to watch my weight. Like I always just say to her, I'm like, aren't you like 67?
Yeah.
Like, who are you doing that for?
And I've heard you say that to her, yeah.
Yeah, because I just, at this point, I'm like, just fucking live your life, dude. Like, what do you do? Like, and obviously when you have health problems, it's like another conversation. But yeah, I do sometimes kind of get on her about that, where I'm just like, there's really no point to your commitment to diet culture anymore, because it's not for anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, ever since you've been around my family's learning a lot. Like, hell, my mom's learning a lot about this stuff.
Is she?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Does she ask you about it?
She's asked questions. She'll do some
really?
research. I mean, everyone does. My aunt, when you came to visit, and it's like, what can she eat?
Yeah.
We're like, oh, she's a vegetarian. Like, okay, we're a big meat family. What should we do this and that? And then we're there, and then we can tell you're very uncomfortable with stuff. So then my aunt pulls me aside and is like, hey, are we doing something wrong? What should we, like, what's going on? It's like, well, there's a little more to it than just being a vegetarian. There's an eating disorder behind it. Then they're very respectful of, like, okay, what does that mean? Then it's like, I'm learning what that means. So please don't ask me yet, but I'll let you know what I've learned.
Yeah.
And then we're going to learn together.
Yeah.
We'll see what she eats on her plate, and we'll see how that goes around. But, like, don't pressure her to eat more.
Yeah.
Because we're very Midwest is like, hey.
Yeah, finish what you were given. Yeah.
I would have to sit at the table until my plate was clean.
Ugh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that really bothers me, like, as someone who has an eating disorder, when people tell me to eat more, or they, like, tell me, like, it's okay, you
What's
can
wrong?
fit, like,
why haven't you eaten everything?
Yeah, like, I'm like, no, I'm practicing my intuitive eating right now. Like, I'm checking in with myself. Like, I think what I've learned more than anything is, like, understanding your own hunger and fullness cues is actually, like, the hardest part about recovery, because when you have an eating disorder for fucking 15 years, like, your body is, like, not its own anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell when you're full. You can't tell when you're hungry. You can't tell when you're satisfied, because your relationship with food is no longer about satiation. It's about, like, what the value of it is. So if I sit there and I eat, like, you know, my meal and, like, 3/4 of it are eaten and I leave some of it on the plate, it's not that it wasn't good or I didn't like it or I'm trying to save my calories. It's no, my body's full and it feels good, and I'm just happy now. I'm happy tummy. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think that it goes back to, like, when you're in Italy and they're like, no, eat.
Oh my gosh,
I think that, I mean, especially Midwest, or, like, my family, big food family. You prepare food all day, you eat food, you snack, you do this and that. So it is like, do they not like us because they're not eating our food type thing? Yeah. So, and it's like, hey, that's not the case at all. There's just more behind it that is way deeper than any of this that's happening right now. And I think they understand that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was probably the hardest part, was around our family last Christmas.
And I was literally, like, 3 weeks into recovery.
Yeah.
I was, like, fucking brand spanking new into that shit.
What's like the one thing, close stuff out, like, what's the one thing that you've learned?
Winnie is just, the curtains are giving
Hey,
wicked.
cutie.
It's green and pink.
How beautiful.
You can see Winnie in the camera.
What do you think is I've helped with in terms of your recovery? Having a partner.
Shutting the fuck up.
You?
No. What have you helped with the most? Probably, like, allowing me to feel comfortable not getting validation from someone about my choices. Like, I think for a long time I felt like what you said earlier, I needed you to validate that it was okay that I was eating dessert, or that it was okay that I didn't work out that day, or whatever myriad of things. Like, and now, even though it still crosses my mind and sometimes I do need the validation, I don't need it as much. And you've taught me that, like, it's okay to eat differently than another person. It's okay to sometimes eat more than my boyfriend, because there's this notion that women eat less than men, right? Like, it's okay if I go to dance and I am fucking starving when I get home, and you've been at work all day, we're probably going to eat a different amount of food, you know?
At a different pace.
Right.
I'm a gorilla, dude.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like, it's okay for me to want to eat differently because I'm listening to my body, and my body is not your body, and vice versa.
You have different metabolisms.
Yeah. And
different taste buds.
Yeah, and I think that that's really, like, especially now that we're living together, it's almost a whole other level of peeling back the layers of, why do I feel that way? Why do I need that validation? Because I've just been so used to everyone looking at what I'm eating for so long, and I've always had the idea that everyone cares, but no one actually gives a fuck.
Yeah.
So I feel a lot more comfortable like eating around people and making food decisions and not having to like be like, oh, are you gonna eat something? Or oh, are you gonna do this? You know what I mean? Yeah, I think that's probably been the most helpful.
Yeah.
As my boyfriend. Thanks for being my boyfriend. How long do I get to lease you for? A few more years, at least?
However long you want.
However long I want. Okay, cool. Well, I have this affirmation board that you have very graciously kept here at the studio.
I haven't even thought about it.
And I asked him yesterday to come up with an affirmation. He still doesn't have one. But as you know, we fill up this affirmation board
You're
because
ugly, LOL.
I know Fupa wrote that. Because I think affirmations are like really important and they're fucking cheesy and hard sometimes, but we got to do it. So is there one that you tell yourself sometimes?
I love my haters. With an 8. With an 8.
Okay.
I want to get a license plate that's
I
like
love
that.
like LUV, my hater. I love my haters.
I love, and then H8 ERS.
TRS.
No
I
T.
love haters.
8 ERS.
Oh yeah, 8 haters. Okay,
I should
I
just
got
write
it.
it. I
Just
write
write that.
but I'm gonna write it down.
I love my
What a
haters.
different color.
But then you have to sign. Then you have to sign it as Nick.
Let me see. And why is that an affirmation? Because if you love your haters, you'll learn to love yourself even more. Right?
Wow, wise words.
Aurora used gold. No one else used gold.
Wise words. I think Maddie used gold.
Let's use gold. Let's put gold up here.
I like it. I love my haters.
I love Fupa, dude.
I know, she was so funny.
Let's see.
That is a very Nick quote because I feel like watching you open this studio and kind of deal with some of the, I guess, like behavior that comes from the comedy scene from it, whether people have opinions or not, and kind of watching the way that you like combat the negative views is you are very like, I love my haters. You're very like subtweet. I'm gonna say,
I will tag them.
Like, yeah, I know.
I'll tag them.
Like, you're gonna like post something and be like, at Morgan Gallo, fuck you. Like,
yeah, we'll call them out in Westward. We'll call them out in Rooster.
Oh yeah, if you have heard of Westward Magazine, there's a whole article about Nick in there from when was it? November? It was like around Thanksgiving time that came out, right? Maybe
Something
even
like
before then. Yeah. Well, thank you for letting me use this studio. Thank you for being here for me. Thank you for being my boyfriend. Thank you for letting me be Winnie's mom. Thank you for...
Wow, I just drew a triangle for a heart. What the fuck?
Oh, okay.
I've never...
Oh, you really wrote, I love...
Haters.
I love haters. Okay. Well, thank you for listening to this very special
so
episode.
stupid.
This is a very long episode, but hopefully it was insightful. Where can everyone find you, Nick? Where can everyone find Dude IDK?
Dude1DK on Instagram, and really I'm just here at the studio all the time. So Dude IDK Studios,
Dude
Denver,
IDK
Colorado.
Studios in like the Skyland area.
Denver, right next to Live Laugh Denver.
Shout out to Live Laugh Denver. Shout out Liquid Death for
Sponsored by Liquid
sponsoring.
Death. Sponsored
Yeah.
by Liquid Death.
Hell yeah. We got a lot of cool stuff
Chef
coming
Pat,
up this year.
He caters so much. Chef Pat's the man.
Yeah, cooking. What is it? Cooking meat with Chef
Cooking
Pat.
meat with Chef Pat. It's not cooking meats. It's cooking meat with Chef Pat. I've learned that
Okay.
lesson 200 times
Okay.
on YouTube.
I like it.
All the podcasts that are in here, the best podcasts.
Yeah.
Daytime Talk After Dark, My Body, My Jokes.
Did That Age Well, Chicken and the Nuggets.
We made a list. We're over doubling our podcast in the next couple months.
That's fucking sick, dude.
Crazy.
That's awesome.
We're gonna have a really cool drag queen podcast in there where we play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I love it.
We have a lot of cool stuff happening, man.
Well, Dude IDK Studios, the happening place for comedy and all of your media needs here in Denver. Thank you for being here, babe. I think you're pretty cool.
I think you're pretty cool too.
Sick.
Love your haters.
Love your haters. Bye.
Gotta do this.
Thank you so much for listening to My Body, My Jokes. Please be advised that the information provided in this podcast is for general discussion purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Always, always, always seek the advice of a qualified healthcare professional with any concerns you might have regarding the topics discussed in today's episode. Also, if you or someone you know is struggling with an eating disorder, please call the National Eating Disorders Association helpline at 1-800-931-2237. Bye.